So our first presenter today is Seen in Vogue, Audrey Bullock, who is a style strategist who brings her 30 years of experience managing the personal presentation of leaders across business, government, and academia through her private consulting practice, Audrey Bullock Style Incorporated. Audrey is a former staff member at Yale University School of Drama. She has consulted for companies like Continental Airlines, Hyatt Hotels and Resorts, Sheraton Hotels, Atlantis, just to name a few. And she is based out of Seattle, Washington. So she is joining us early for her. Appreciate you getting up and joining us. And Audrey she now volunteers her time in part with MBA students, and I love this, what she's doing with them at the Michael Foster School of Business in Seattle, helping them kind of create their look as they're finishing their education. And today she is going to share her insights on how to leverage appearance in our new virtual world. So with that, I will turn it over to Audrey.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction, Elise. I'm so happy to be here. I may refer to some things about being this morning, even though I do realize you all are in the afternoon there. So I'll try to get that time switch going. But I want to talk today about how to leverage our presence in a virtual world. As we begin to reemerge, it's important to build a virtual signature that leverages our appearance in both our virtual and our physical world. So as I'm going to cover quite a bit of information, there's 3 things that I want you all to remember from today. Crafting a visual signature is just as important as any other marketing materials that you've developed. And it is a new access point to communication that we all need to take advantage of. Consistency is key to our virtual and our physical space. It's time to utilize the experience online in the same way as it is in person, even though we're using a different communication style. And the other thing is to be prepared. We're going to be working in both worlds now. We can no longer roll out of bed, put on our sweatpants, grab our Zoom shirt, grab our Zoom jacket, and be in meetings all day with our Uggs tucked safely underneath the table. We're going to be interacting in places. So, to really leverage our style in this time of this reopening opportunity, it's important to clean up some of the things we've been doing over the last year. Now we want to make sure our style is current and our message is free from avoidable distractions. So in this year, it is refining the top 3 pieces in the virtual world. We're going to talk about background, appearance, lighting. So backgrounds are best when they're a unified brand message. A company background is great for establishing professional ability. Highly recommend one design and distributed to create consistency. The other one is if you're not using a virtual background, you want to have uncomplicated visuals. Avoid personal references unless it's a component of your brand. Make your visuals easy to recognize, because if you give people something to look at, they will stop and look at it, and then they will try to figure out exactly what it is. And when that happens, they become more focused on that process than on listening to the message. So you definitely don't want to get in the way of the message delivery by doing a lot of different things for people to look at. And the last thing is have neutral colors behind you. One of the things about this technology is that it's 2-dimensional. So you have to find a way to create space with it. So to keep yourself in the foreground, keep your background neutral. You also want to check all the lines and details in the background to make sure nothing is intersecting with the person in the foreground. We've all seen lines running through heads or words that are cut off. So it's like really pay attention to where these things land. Now I have a little video for you that shows you how distracting it is to see an untethered background. And as we can see, as he moves around too much, we become kind of entranced seeing what's going to happen next to this person, but we aren't really thinking about the message that he's trying to convey because it's completely out with this background. So that's why we don't want these backgrounds that don't have any relationship back to what our message is. So next, we're going to talk about proper face framing. None of these frames have a face in it. So they're there, but nobody wants to be looked down on or crowded, even in the virtual world. So the best position is to frame our face in the center of the screen. We want to have a little height above our head, and we want the frame, lower frame, to be about mid-chest. The other thing is using a computer stand, you can put the camera at eye level, because the only time we can really connect is when we look into the camera. Looking down at the picture boxes has no connection, has no eye connection. So we want to stay in line with the camera. We also want our chin level so it opens up our throat and we can speak easier. So sit up straight and be in the center of the screen. The other thing I want to say is if you're working multiple screens and you have something that you're looking up on either side of the screen, so it puts your face in profile, let people know that that's what's happening, that you are pulling up information for this conversation. You are not just reading another screen and multitasking in the middle of it. Next, I want to talk about lighting. And I'm going to say, unfortunately, windows are not good lighting sources. All right. I mean, what are you going to do when it's dark? Not only that, the lighting changes over the course of the day, even if you live in a sunny climate. So there will be distinctive differences that you'll have to cope with. Whereas if you use just interior lighting that you want to keep consistent, on this slide, you can see that one light is very bright daylight and one light is soft white light. Those are preferences as well as branding issues. You want to make sure that all the lighting in the area is the same, either the bright white or the soft light. Now, one of the hardest things to control is lighting, which is why you'll never see a production room with windows, is because the lighting has to stay directly in line to keep the picture consistent. So if you have a dedicated space, it's a great idea to go ahead and set your lighting up to stay in that position. If you have to move your lighting around, make sure that you tape mark your floor so that you can put it back in the position it needs to be in. If you have a situation where you're moving around looking for a place to have meetings, what you want to do is you want to have small mobile lights that go with you. And the best ring lights are tricky to use if you have glasses, because one of the things about ring lights is that they are to reflect the eyes, and they do a great job of doing it on glasses, is creating the reflection. So what works better is little spots if you have glasses, and you want little spots on either side of the screen and one spot on top near the camera so that it lights up this in the foreground, and then you don't have to worry about anything that's happening in the background, hopefully. So, and now that we've set up our background appearance and lighting, what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to jump into the picture. It's getting back to a time when we're getting ready for work again, because we're going to be in both virtual and face-to-face meetings. So quarantine has changed our perspective on what to wear and has transformed our work wear attitudes. While it's allowed a more casual disposition for coping in this huge transition, and the good news is that we're through it, the hard part. However, it does not mean that a professional appearance and attitude have disappeared. And on the contrary, it is even more essential to establish a competitive edge and leverage our position in the marketplace. So I want to wrap up this last part talking a little bit about new looks and the trends that we're going to start seeing show up. So this year, we're going to see the influence not only of the quarantine, but also of the 60s. And the reason why we're seeing from the 60s is the 60s were a time of great turmoil, but also great optimism. And the first one I'm going to talk about is hair. We've gone from hair on demand to now hair at home. Cuts are softer and they allow a longer time for grow out and holding the shape. Blunt edges with simple silhouettes are good and the lob is still going strong. Color has become natural and there is now intentional root styling. Now for the men, you want to keep your length on top and tighter on the side. There's also more natural curls being seen. And let's keep that facial hair under control. It's fine to have it, but not poking out from underneath the mask. Color is big for two reasons this year. Expressive color is a sign of transition and has more energy around it. And it also, color works better on video. As long as there's enough saturation and enough light, it can be a beautiful way to stay in the foreground of the picture. Blues and greens are really big, but so is blush pink and the variants that come off of it. So again, because they are cheerful, patterns are also being used in both men's and women's clothes quite extensively. We really want to see a more uplifted side this year. Also a big accessory year. So don't worry about all the clothes you have hanging in the closet that you might be thinking, oh, am I going to wear this again? Take your basics and give them accessories. Earrings are really big. You're going to see a lot of layered necklaces. You'll see more rings than usual. The other thing that's going to come up this fall is pattern tights. Shoes are a heavier sole. They now have chunkier heels. It's a more functional feel to it. Lug boots are being worn with everything from jeans to dresses to suiting. So what's really going to show off is whether or not we've updated our shoes for this new world. So the other thing, makeup fresh and natural. It's more about the eyeliner and highlighting lips with softer colors. Brows are really the focal point this year, and that's where you can pull a little drama out. So I want to close with the three things I asked you to remember, which is creating a visual signature is just as important as any of your marketing tools. Virtual communication is now universally accepted, and we will be going forward with more and more interest in it. Consistency is the key to linking the virtual and the physical world. The experience in both is about consistent standards. And be prepared to take on both, to leverage your appearance in both the virtual and the physical world. I just want to give you a quick before and after to show you what an effect it makes to follow all of these things. As you can see on the left, I did many Zoom meetings that way and thought it looked great. It was only when I started doing these seminars that I realized that more lighting, better background, and being frame focused was really important. So thank you for joining me, and I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Audrey. We've got a couple of questions. Someone wants to know, are patterns a distraction on Zoom?
No, they're not. Patterns are great on Zoom. You're going to see a lot more patterns coming out. Where it becomes difficult is if the pattern has a lot of white and high contrast. That will make the camera bounce. But any patterns with minimized white looks great on video.
And then the other question, thank you. And the other question is, if we're zooming from the office, are we keeping a neutral background?
As much as you can. The thing about the neutral background is that you want to have color in the foreground because we're the focus point. So as much as you can keep the background neutral, it will keep you from looking flat against the wall too, because again, it's a two-dimensional world. We're trying to create a distance.
Great. So we've got some work to do in our office before we open it up to our clients. It's been a conversation. Now that I'm going to have Diane on board, it'll be an easier conversation to have.
Oh, good.
I learned a lot, Audrey. Now I'm very self-conscious about what I'm wearing, which is not a pattern, and my lighting, not so sure, but
Oh, you all look
outstanding.
wonderful, but now, yes, I wondered why you guys wanted me to go first.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to our conversation we had last week, Audrey, about like how, it's a development. You don't just start off with all these things, like you buy a
No.
ring light and then you kind of realize what works from there and then, build your virtual office from there.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I think this is a time too where it's like, it seems like it should be an easy thing to do, just sit down, turn the Zoom on and go. But sometimes it's really great to bring in like a lighting consultant or someone who can help with those things and answer those specific questions.
As
Awesome.
always, you're very generous with the information. I really appreciate it. Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.